It's a year since you organised this last year. It was such a terrific way to connect with people. My name's Linda Lorenza. I'm one of the researchers on this project with my colleague Don Carter, who's here as well. And oh, now I have to do the sharing thing, don't I? um, okay. There we are. Is that in everyone's sight? Yeah, a few thumbs up. Fantastic. Thank you. So Don and I, a couple of years ago, conducted a national study, and what we're doing now is talking about one of the research outputs from that. But before we start, here's the title of what we're going to be talking about: Teaching the Arts Online, a Micro-credential as a Model for Humanising Practice-Rich Pedagogy in Teacher Education. And before we go any further, I'd like to hand over to Don.
Thanks, Linda, and good morning, everyone. It is lovely to be here. I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. I'm actually joining you from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation in Sydney, and I'd like to acknowledge that they are the traditional custodians of the land, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be with us today. And given that we're in an online meeting, I'd like to invite you to share in the chat the Indigenous nation or country from which you are joining us today. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Don. I'm just putting in where I am too, because it's so interesting to see where everyone's from. So what we're looking at is arts learning, and that online, as we all know, since the COVID period, is here to stay. And we spend probably even more time online now than we did before that time. So we conducted a study that Don will talk about in a moment, a bit more about the details of it. But we brought on colleagues from universities across Australia who were specialists in the different art forms in the Australian arts curriculum. That's dance, drama, media arts, music, and visual arts. And so what we wanted to look at was the embodied and relational side of the arts, the fact that it's sensory and it's physical and it's deeply interpersonal. And one thing we were doing was looking at how do children socialise through arts learning, and then what happened when that suddenly became through the screen. As I said, we've had this permanent shift online and hybrid modalities, and now an enduring part of teacher education. The university that I'm at, most of the teacher education is conducted online, yet we're also in an area with a high teacher shortage. So most of our students are also on permission to teach. So I think they are remarkable juggling all of that. There's no way I could have been put into a school my first year of university. So so I think that's something that we need to be mindful of. And then we're looking at the theoretical gap that, we're still learning now in this field. It's fragmented. We've got lots of small scale studies, which is also what you could say about the survey side of ours. But I think there's lots to look at and there's lots to learn from. Over to you, Don. Let me give you a new slide.
Thanks, Linda. So what we've done is, as Linda says, a national study, and we wanted to transform it from evidence to exemplars. So we were looking at a micro-credential. So it's a professional learning resource to build primary teachers' knowledge, skills and capability. So what we've done is we've curated exemplars from online practice, arts practice, and it's based on our national research. And we think it's accessible, scalable in a digital format, and it's discipline specific and practice rich. The national study identified experiences in the arts that impacted positively on student outcomes. So there was multi-site data across different contexts, identified high quality arts exemplars and synthesize fragmented findings into one resource. So we think it bridges that research practice divide. And we're hoping that what we've developed will be of great use for teachers across the country. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Don. So yeah, we conducted this mixed methods research study, and you can see here a summary of the 3 stages. So we started with stage 1, the national survey, which was of primary school students, parents, and teachers, as well as a systematic literature review. Then we conducted in stage 2 survey comparison. So looking at the survey data, against what we found in the literature. And then we were looking for examples of practice. And that's where we went back to teachers and schools to talk with them about the things that they put up as examples in the survey. And then in stage 3, we had these demonstrations. So we tried out the best practice examples. We had the overview of those from the art form researchers from the different institutions, and then we developed this digital resource. Me again. And so here are the research questions that we were focused on. I won't read those out, but they're there. The survey distribution, over 2,000 emails, all of these social media posts and combined posts. But of course, the thing we discovered, people were survey tired. I think after all our long period online. So our participants were not as high as perhaps we might have hoped. There were various factors that impacted that as well. We did have a couple of jurisdictions and school groups within jurisdictions that opted not to participate for various reasons. But still, we got a lot of interesting data, particularly from the teachers and the parents. The student numbers was very low, which was disappointing because there were layers of consent through their ethical requirements. And so once you've got lots of clicks, parental consent, you can see that the kids dropped off. These are our overall qualitative findings that arts learning did contribute to students' wellbeing, engagement, and socialisation. It did create emotional connection. We found that the best practice activities had open-ended and child-led opportunities. The online space was a safe space to take risks in arts learning activities, and students did enjoy and feel a sense of well-being. Don.
So, as Linda said, a sense of well-being was one of the things that came out of the study. But as you'll see from that slide, also socialisation and self-confidence. So there was that safe environment that helped consolidate positive feelings of well-being. There was that peer connection through structured online arts collaboration, and there was the self-confidence building that agency, voice, and expressive confidence. And the underlying design principles you can see there: humanising, pedagogy, relational design, practice-rich tasks, and disciplinary integrity.
So this led us to how do we put together all of those things into a useful package for teachers and for pre-service teachers. So you can see up there the link bedifferent.cqu.edu.au. That's where the micro-credential and independent learning courses sit for people from CQU. So you're welcome to, if you're like me, I'd be going, can I get into that? And I am going to walk you through how to get there. But you might like to jump on and start having a play around. But these 3 things are showing what we were really trying to do through this Primary Arts Learning Online series of learning activities. So we're looking for self-reflection and autonomy on the part of the student. And with these, you'll see that we're focusing on primary years students. So we're looking at arts learning within the primary school. We found that it improves school culture, and we did have some, feedback to that effect from different parent participants in the survey. And then innovative teaching methods. It was so interesting hearing from teachers about what they'd done and how they'd adapted their in-class learning for the online experience.
And
Don, over to you.
yeah, thanks, Linda. And one of the, I guess, interpretive lenses that we found really useful was Dinham's six signature pedagogies. And these describe the distinctive ways that learning in the arts occur. And they emphasize inquiry, creativity, collaboration, cultural engagement, reflection, and student agency. And the teachers act as facilitators and help the students develop as creative and independent practitioners. And you'll see the pedagogies there, their own experiences, their learning experiences, but also their individual and collaborative learning experiences. Importantly, there's the dimension of ethical engagement, and then there's reflection and critical review, and then educator interactions with students. So I think this is a really useful way in which to interpret what's happening in arts classrooms, people's reactions, how they work together, etc. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Don. So we use the signature pedagogies in each of the art form learning activities, and we actually highlight which of the six pedagogies are, to us, really evident in that art form learning activity. We also look carefully at these four components of the personal and social capability. The personal and social capability is one of 7 general capabilities in the Australian curriculum. I like to refer back to Elliot Eisner, who called these sorts of skills dispositions the hidden curriculum. So it's really exciting now in the 21st century that that is acknowledged. Different countries call them different things: competencies, capabilities, dispositions. But so this is what we were honing in on. And within the Australian curriculum, there's actually, you can dig right into the general capabilities, and they've developed levels and components of these attributes of each of the capabilities so that you can look at what sort of level your students are at or what sort of level your activity is at. So we've built this into the evidence in the micro-credential as well. Self-awareness, self-management, so very much the ones focused on the student looking at themselves, but then looking outwards, the social awareness and social management. So here's my little slide of the way in. So if you've got to the Be Different page, then you will see this first image with the information on the right, and then you sign in or register for micro-credential courses here. Once you actually register, then this is the course that you're looking for. I actually did a little search last night just to see, and when I went to the main page to search for courses, I put arts, and we now have 33 different micro-credentials related to the arts. Not all for primary school learning, but I was very excited to see that it's a growing stable of things there. So that's where you get to, and this is the information that it gives you that you go to click on the cart. And I've just flagged here, particularly if you did want to have a look at this and use any of it with pre-service teachers, it's free. So when it gets to the fee, even though you have to click to put it in your cart, then it just comes up as 0. So that's that one. And then here we are, if we jump back and think about where I was talking about the different components of the personal and social capability. So we haven't put all of the details of each learning activity for each of the art forms here, but what I've done is I've just put a screenshot of the goals. So we had the goals that we were hoping the students would achieve by undertaking the learning activity, and then looking at which of the components of the personal social capability were evident in that learning activity. So here you can see in the dance activity, demonstrating personal and emotional awareness, actually describing emotional responses. So we had lots of questioning in the activity. The dance activity looks at basic spatial movement. We found some wonderful free access videos online to do with even using the clock face. And the animation comes up on the screen because Don and I talked about the fact that there are probably a lot of primary school students today that haven't seen an analog clock face. So there's some nice little extra components in there. Looking at the goals, you can see what they are here. Demonstrate perseverance and adaptability with unfamiliar tasks. Again, empathy and relational awareness. using a range of skills to enhance their verbal and non-verbal communication and participating cooperatively in groups on common tasks and activities. So by the time they've done all of those things within the learning activity, then hopefully what we're seeing are these components of self-awareness and self-management, social awareness and social management. I won't read all of those out, but you're welcome to just have little snippets of a look there. So that's the dance one. I've just done that similar lookup for each of the activities so that you can see that we follow the same structure, which I think is always useful. The actual learning activities themselves are set up as interactive PDFs that a teacher can use directly from in the platform or download. And everything's embedded at that because we wanted it to be as accessible as possible for online learning, for teachers using smart boards and other kind of interactive technology in the classroom, but also if you just wanted to go back to the paper. So just jump across. So here you can see the same setup for drama. Don, please jump in if there's anything you'd like to point out about any of these little summaries. So again, you can see we've set them up in the same way. Demonstrate personal and emotional awareness is there again, perseverance and adaptability, and then demonstrating empathy and relational awareness. And of course, that can happen in different ways in drama compared to in dance. And now when we move across to media arts, you can see there's a real change here. There's the goals, describing emotional responses of themselves and others, using a range of skills to enhance, so we've still got that there, and participating cooperatively in groups on common tasks. Now, one thing we did was we connected the media arts activity to the drama activity. And similarly, we connected the music activity to the dance activity. So if we're looking at a classroom teacher who needs to cover 2 or more art forms, there were logical segues in the material in those learning activities. And we hope that that sets up an example of how you can do that for a teacher who then wants to include new and other things. Now, interestingly, here you can see there's a lot less of the blue in this particular media arts learning activity. So there's emotional awareness, describing their own emotional responses, possibly theirs and others, but we didn't have as much in terms of reflective practice and personal awareness. And then we see across here communication and collaboration. So there was less identified in this particular example of the media arts learning activity.
Linda,
yes.
Can I just say that Siobhan has a question in the chat asking, are the students in this context the adult learners at university or the children at school? So with regard to this, it's the children in school because the general capabilities are targeted at school students and developing their capabilities across the 7 capabilities and each of these components. But I'd also add, if we think again about Dinham's 6 signature pedagogies, I think our students as teacher education students benefit from these types of capabilities because the interactions between students and our teacher education students and the school students develop a whole range of interpersonal skills and capacities for reflection and critical review and ethical engagement. So I think it's a little bit of a two-way street at times. Linda, sorry, would you like to add to that?
No, I think that's a terrific response, Don. And yeah, just jump back to the signature pedagogies there. I hope that that answers the question. Yeah. And then if we just jump ahead, so there's the example, again, slightly different in the goals for visual arts. See what they have discovered about themselves by engaging with feedback and then describing the emotional responses of others and themselves. So I just think it's interesting, for the teacher and for the pre-service teacher, really thinking about, as Don said, what components of the personal social capability, what social skills and personal self-management skills is the student developing in those initial years of primary school. Don, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. So what this means for the field. So what we're hoping to do is to develop a scalable evidence-based model um, with curated national evidence that can inform accessible professional learning, um, a disciplinary integrity online. So it doesn't have to jeopardize or compromise the relational and embodied nature of arts education, which we all agree is so important. And at a system and policy program level, we're hoping that what we're doing can inform program and policy development. So it's quite ambitious in some ways, but we're trying to take a fairly extensive view of this and the different areas that might benefit from the research findings.
Absolutely. Thanks, Don. And then we just had a few minutes left for any questions or comments, and I just put the link back there just in case people were curious and trying to find access into that set of examples. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
This represents a phenomenal amount of work. Thank you so much, not only for doing the work, but also making it available freely. I'm wondering, just as a really quick question before I open it to others, hogging the floor here, did you receive some funding for this project?
Yes. So, yeah, this was funded through the emerging, what was it called?
Priorities program.
Emerging Priorities Program. Yeah, that was through the Department of Education, through the Australian government.
Oh, fantastic. And while I've got the floor,
Please.
how many, have you got data on how many teachers and pre-service teachers have made use of the micro-credentials?
I haven't got that to hand, but that's something that I have to, fill in the digital form to get to our back end people to get that detail. Yeah, because it'll be really interesting for us now. I think it's been up for a while to have a look and see who has used it. And yeah, definitely very happy to share you with that when we find out.
Oh, it's not necessary that you need to do all that work for me. I was just sort of curious as to,
Yeah,
I know this has been running for a little while now.
yeah.
So I'll open the floor, however, to any others. Yeah, Siobhan.
Um, yeah, carrying, moving on from, who's used it. What I'm curious about is how does it get paid for? Like, so is it available to students who are already paying students of the university or alumni of the university, or where does the money fit in?
So the money fitted in us setting it up and getting it there. So that was all paid by the research grant that we did this initial work with. Now it's sitting there and just keeping going. But of course, what will happen next is as we find out feedback, because it's got questions through it, asking people, asking teachers, pre-service teachers, how did you find this? What do you think? What do you recommend? So of course, now Don and I are going to have to find some more funding so that we can do, version 2 and go in and do a further development of what's there. But at the moment, it's completely free and it's available domestically and internationally, because I did hear some overseas teachers were really interested in having a look at it as well. So fingers crossed, and yeah, I think the setup of the Australian curriculum has got some good feedback internationally as well. So I think there's probably lots of people like us that are always looking at what's everyone else doing. So yeah.
I'm doing my teacher wait 5 seconds. Is it 5? What's the wait time? I did have another one. So this is set up for, I can see your audience could be teachers already in schools, your pre-service teachers. To what extent is this informing what you do with your pre-service teachers? Are you actually directing them to these modules as a core part of your teaching and learning, or are you doing something different and letting them know that these micro-credential courses exist?
Yeah, Don, do you want to talk about your university first and then I'll talk about mine?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, Katie. At the moment, my teaching is with secondary English pre-service teachers, and there is so much regulatory, mandatory stuff that we have to do in those courses. The core content, the mandated core content, for example. It's really hard to fit in everything we like to do. But and I haven't done this yet, but what I will do is point my students to the micro-credential to enhance their English teaching, because we do media in English, as you know. We do drama where possible, as you know, and I think some of the resources on the micro-credential will be helpful and for the students, but also just expand their horizon on what resources are available and what they might be able to use. Linda?
Yeah, so at my university, it's not a core part of the education course, but again, it's there and pointed to so students can go in and have a look if they like. I'm hoping that we can build a bit more attention to it, particularly as so much of the education course here is currently an online experience.
I imagine that probably one of the biggest challenges you face is just making people aware that these exist. And I noticed you said in your recruitment that you had about 500 social media posts. Are you still kind of utilizing that to try to get the information out?
Yes and no. No, just because this time of the year and it's us doing it, we've kind of slowed down a bit because we've been caught up with students. But yes, because that is something that we need to keep doing. So I know in my university they're about to put a new article out on the university news, and we'll see if that gets picked up. So great question. Thanks, Katie.
Sorry, Pip, I was talking and you'd put your hand up.
No, I don't think so. I think I put it up after you were talking. Look, I'd just like to say congratulations. It's such great work. I think it's more of a comment than a question. It's such a difficult time for the arts within curricula, within higher education. Um, we used to have an art specialisation in for primaries. They're gone because, as you were saying, Don, there's so much compliance that we have to fit in. So what do you get rid of? You get rid of the arts, even though the arts are the place where everything could be learned. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox now. Sorry about this. And I think that by having these things available, because you're getting students who are going out to teach in, say, for example, primary schools, who have no understanding, and they have to teach arts bits because it's in the sort of schedule for the week or something, and there isn't, they haven't had that background except maybe a few hours here and there. So it's a really fantastic initiative, and maybe one day enlightenment will happen and we'll go back to the arts being the central place from where all learning stems. And now I'll get off my soapbox, so thank you.
Thank you, Pip.
Thanks, Pip. Yeah, here.
Oh, yes. Lots of congratulations and claps from everyone on that point. I think we love a good soapbox, especially if it's championing the arts. Well, we are right on time. So thank you very much, Don and Pip. Linda.
And Pip.
And thank you, Pip, yes, for ending it on such a salient note.
Thanks,
That
Katie. Thanks,
recording
everyone.